Hey, catechists and volunteers, our next session is on the topics of creation and vocation. These are two things that go together, and are incredibly important for kids anymore, especially as the kids get older, the middle schoolers. I can tell you from years of working with confirmation prep students, when we talk about how they were made on purpose and they are not a mistake, such a simple concept resonates with them. Sometimes it brings them to tears sitting in the room as you're saying it. Most of our kids these days do not think that they were made on purpose. They don't think they have a point to their existence. They're an accident. They're a product of evolution or whatever. And so drilling into their heads, you're made on purpose. Your creator thought about you ahead of time and then brought you into existence. That's what this session is all about. And that's that concept of vocation, right? It's rooted in creation. God doesn't create anything by accident or for no purpose. He's excessively creative, right? He makes all sorts of stuff that we haven't discovered yet. But all of it is for us. That's what those creation narratives are about. So it's important for us as adults to recognize you might not dive into this in detail, in this detail with your students, but there's those two creation narratives in the Bible, Genesis 1, Genesis 2. Genesis 1 is the super familiar one, the 6-day creation cycle where God rests on the 7th day. And we're so used to reading that through the lens of this doesn't work with science. The point of that story, right, there's a thesis statement at the beginning in verse 2. When God creates the world, it's formless and it's empty. And so he systematically forms it over days 1 through 3, and then he fills it in days, 4 through 6, right? So he makes light on day 1, and then on day 4, he makes the sun, the moon, and the stars, the things that govern the light, right? And then he makes the sea and the air, and he fills it with birds and fish. And then he makes the land, and he puts animals and people on it. And the culmination of the whole story is humanity, you and me. We are the reason he did all of it. Right, and so it's a story that shows us God systematically, step by step, doing stuff because he doesn't do anything by accident, right? And we're the crown of creation. And then the second, and it also shows God's creative power, right? Let there be, boom, it exists. The second story shows God's intimacy in creation. The timelines don't match up, and that's on purpose, right? God's not trying to show us exactly what came in what order. The second story, God creates the entire world, and then he makes man and puts him into it. But he stoops down, he scoops up the clay, he molds man, he breathes his own life force into him. Man recognizes, we just read this recently at Mass, right? Man recognizes nothing in creation is fit to be his helpmate. And so God creates woman out of the side of man. And so they're equal, right? And so that story shows God's intimacy and his care for us. And those two concepts go together. God is this immensely powerful being who created us on purpose and at the same time is intimately familiar with the details of our lives and cares. And so that's the basic message of creation and vocation. You're made on purpose. And so what we're giving most of the kiddos to take home is a globe stress ball. The idea is the guy who created the world and holds it in his hands also made you and made you on purpose. And so don't stress about what you're made for, right? A good problem that we're running into is we've had more kids register for programming. Last year we had 606 kids. This year we're up to 660 in the whole program. So we don't have enough of these to go around. So we're getting prayer cards for a prayer to know my vocation to give out to 7th and 8th grade because we don't have enough of these. Going forward, we'll get enough of all the stuff to be able to give everybody the same thing. So that's the basic takeaways. The activities that we're doing in kindergarten and first grade, we've got an Oriental trading craft, a Days of Creation sequencing craft. It's like an accordion pleated thing with a half of a globe on one side, half a globe on the other. You can fold it together to make the world, and when you open it up, each panel on that fold has a day of creation. And so you can use that as a tool to teach the creation story, the 7-day creation story, or you can use that as a tool to reinforce the story after you've already taught it. A bunch of grades have this no two alike activity, and that is, you can do it a couple different ways. You'll have some of these magnifying glasses. The idea is you're examining your fingerprints. You can also use ink stampers and stamp out their fingerprints to look at them that way, compare them to the kids next to them. The idea is you are a unique creation, and God made you on purpose, every single one of us. That's the concept of vocation. God made you and me to do something that only we can do. Right? He made you to do something that only you can do, and if you don't do it, no one else literally in creation will. Right? And that truth is stamped into our bodies because our fingerprints are different, every last one of us, right? And so that's just a way of exploring that. You can do that a couple of different ways. I think every grade level has vocations thank you cards. We'll just provide some paper and markers and stuff like that. You can do these in a generic form, thank you. I like to do these as a thank you card to the staff members, clergy and staff members, because they're putting their gifts at the service of God, right? Our maintenance crews are putting their gifts at the service of God by keeping our buildings clean. Our secretarial staff are putting their gifts to the service of the church by keeping things organized and helping with information gathering and all that sort of stuff. Folks who coordinate ministries, our deacons, all these folks are using their gifts in different ways to help the church, and they often don't get thanked for it. And so a simple little thank you card, it could be, you could have them make thank you cards for your catechist, for the person in charge at your building, for their parents, right? But the concept of just saying thank you for using your gifts for the service of the church is a wonderful thing. I normally do this thing. I will usually give you like a listing with pictures of all the staff members and what their jobs are and what they mean. We weren't able to pull that together. We don't have pictures of everybody yet, but you can kind of just make generic thanks for using your gifts and give them to anybody. But that's the concept of those thank you cards. Connect-to-gears show up in a bunch of different lesson plans. Connect-to-gears are these little gear thingies that can connect in a bunch of different ways. You can make chains, you can make flowers, you can make buildings. The concept behind these is you're trying to illustrate intentionality in creation, right? And so you give a bunch of them to a kid and you give them a minute to make something. And every kid, what they're going to do is they're going to think about it for a second, and they're going to just start putting the thing together and playing with it and changing it. And the idea, you're trying to illustrate, this is a glimpse into what happened in the mind of God when he made the entire world, but also when he made you, right? He didn't just grab these things and shove them together and say, yeah, that's good enough, right? He thought about it and he perfected it and he made it better and he decided it should be this way and not this way, and that's what you're trying to illustrate. It's a bit of an abstract concept for a little kid, but they do often, it clicks, especially when they're doing something like this. Again, the great problem that we're having, that we have more kids than we anticipated. We don't have gears for every grade level where it shows up in the lesson plan. If you have connected gears in the lesson plan, we're going to give you something. It might not be gears. It might be these little building blocks that have the names of the Bible on them. Nice tie into last session. Again, they can build them however they want. Other little plasticky things that'll fit together. You can also use trading cards and build card castles, maybe for the older kids. Younger kids aren't so great at that, right? But the idea is we're trying to illustrate intentionality there, right? Let's connect the gears, no two alike. A bunch of lesson plans have vocations matchups. These will be cut out for you. Names of different vocations, descriptions of different vocations, and pictures of those. And again, the idea is you just kind of line them up. There's a great pedagogical value in letting kids move things, right? Even adults as well. If you just draw a circle on your paper as you're listening to a lecture, you're going to remember it better. And so if they're moving this, even if it's a simple manipulation, picture, name, and description, it works a different part of the brain. It helps that set in more, right? So that's what that vocations matchup looks like. For those vocation cards, I skipped over that, I'm sorry. We are going to give you phrases, suggested phrases and suggested Bible verses that they could just copy into those cards. Some of the kids don't know how to spell. Some of them aren't great at writing. You don't want to spend an hour writing everything on the board, so we'll just have these for you in your room, a couple sets in each room, so you can give them some suggestions of what to put in there, right? Thanks for serving God. God bless you. Thanks for all you do. We appreciate you. Jesus loves you. That sort of thing. Third grade, you've got I praise you for I'm wonderfully made activity. This was in your lesson plan, so you've seen this. But again, it's a tool to show them things that they're good at, things that make them unique, what they value, compliments they've received, how they help others. When I grow up, I want to be. Because the basic concept is God made each one of us with a unique set of gifts and talents. Most of us do not recognize our talents. We often think about talents in terms of like sports or academic giftedness or whatever. But even those who are gifted in those areas often don't see it as a gift. They know they're better than other people at it, but they don't see it as I was made on purpose to do this thing well, right? And so we all have a unique set of gifts. It's like personality chemistry, right? Some of us, there's a bunch of us that are good at math, but we're good at math in different ways. There's a bunch of us that are good at art, but we're good at art in different ways. And we're good at art in a different way and math a different way, and that combination is different. And then you factor in a bunch of different things, and you're this unique creation. There's so much science behind that you're created on purpose, right? And so this is just a tool to help them start recognizing what is unique about me, and then to start asking that prayerful question, Lord, why did you make me this way? What am I for? Because you are for something, right? So that's that activity. In the, where is this? Fourth grade lesson plans, fourth and fifth grade, or just fourth grade, I'm sorry. We've got Beatitude symbols. It's a handout like this. The handout calls for, it gives you the Beatitudes and it calls for draw a symbol over here. You can take this as a starting point and do lots of different things with it. You can have them draw a symbol on a full sheet of paper and present to the class why they did that. Hang them up around your room to remind them of the Beatitudes. Send this home with them and ask them to think about symbols and bring it back next week or something like that, right? A lot of different ways you could utilize that. And then I believe the last thing that we have in some of the older lesson plans is the Holy Orders matchup. Very similar to the Vocations matchup. This one is specifically with the 3 degrees of holy orders. This one I don't have cut out, but they'll be cut out. There'll be a picture of our bishop, Bishop Zubik, the word bishop, and a couple of the things that a bishop does, right? Modern day equivalent of the apostles, oversees the diocese, can ordain men to each of the degrees of holy orders. Ordinary celebrant of confirmation, he wears a mitre, all that sort of stuff. And then there'll be a picture of a priest. That's our vicar, Father Mac. I think he's going to be in all of them. There might be different priests in them, I'm not sure. The word priest, what priests do, and then a deacon as well, and what deacons do. And again, the idea is you match up the picture with the title with each of those descriptions. That can create lots of fruitful class dialogue. If you're trying to figure out what does a deacon do, or what does a bishop do that a deacon doesn't do, or what does a priest do that a deacon doesn't do. Right, the bishop does all of it. A priest does everything that a deacon can do, and a deacon does some of it. Right, but there might be some confusion in the room about who does what, so it could create some interesting dialogue. All right, so there's a bunch of the resources for this session. Hopefully you guys have a good session, and certainly let me know if you have any questions on any of this stuff.